I was washing the truck outside the garage when she started. At first, it seemed like the usual small talk, but there was a sharpness to her voice I couldn't ignore. "You don't dress like you care," she said, out of nowhere, almost casual. I kept scrubbing, not really looking at her. "All right. You wear the same things all the time. It's like you don't even think about it." I wiped the side mirror clean, felt the cool water hit my hand. "I'm comfortable." Then came the stuff about how I tell stories. "You tell the same ones over and over. No one cares about the fishing trip you went on 10 years ago." I stood there for a moment, feeling the sting but not showing it. It was just her being her, right? She kept going, barely pausing for breath. "You're fine, but you don't aim for anything bigger. No drive, no ambition." I felt the shift in her tone then. It wasn't about clothes or stories anymore. This was deeper. "You play it too safe. Your job's stable, but it's boring. You're fine with good enough." I could feel the sweat running down my back as I scrubbed. I didn't look at her. "I'm happy with it." She scoffed, the kind of sound that always made me feel small. "Yeah, well, you could do so much more if you just push a little. You don't want to be like those guys I know." "Huh? Those husbands who've got the flash, the moves, the excitement?" I didn't answer. Felt like every word she said was getting colder, more final. "Maybe I'm just stuck with you," she said after a pause, almost like she was reading a script. "Maybe I settled." That was when I knew. She wasn't talking about us anymore. She was submitting her resignation from respect. There was no coming back from that. She followed me into the living room, her footsteps deliberate, too loud in the quiet house. I wasn't surprised. I knew what was coming. "You're not enough, you know," she said, her voice sharp now, like she'd been waiting for this moment all evening. "You're just basic." I set the truck keys down on the coffee table, not looking up at her. I didn't need to. I already knew the script. "You don't stand out. You could be so much more, but you don't want to be." She said it like a challenge, her eyes searching mine for some kind of reaction, some crack in the wall. "I'm good with what I am," I replied, calm as I could manage. She shook her head, pacing like she was trying to burn off some energy. "I didn't say you weren't good. I said you're basic. You're comfortable with being small." "Not small," I said, not letting my voice rise. "Just steady." She shot me a look, then went on, like I hadn't spoken. "You know, I don't even want to get into it, but I could name half a dozen guys right now. Guys who are everything you're not. Flashy, big moves, always doing something new, exciting." I stayed quiet as she kept listing them, names I didn't recognize, or maybe I did but didn't care to. Each one a little dig, a little reminder that I wasn't them. "You could be more like them," she said, the words a little too rehearsed now. "You just don't want to." I could feel it, the pressure in the air thickening. My chest tightened, but I still didn't move. "Are we done?" I asked. She stared at me, eyes wide, like I'd caught her off guard. I could see the effort she was putting into it, the performance she was running. But I wasn't buying it anymore. "Is that your final view of me?" I asked again, quieter this time. She didn't even blink. No hesitation. She just nodded, slow and firm, like she was closing a file in her mind. "Yeah," she said. "That's it." I stood there, feeling something shift in me, like the last thread of patience snapped. It wasn't anger, not yet. But it wasn't love either. It was something else, something I hadn't felt before, something colder. She waited for me to argue, to defend myself, to scramble to prove I was worth more than she'd decided. But I didn't. I wasn't going to. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was just real. I wasn't going to beg for her approval. I wasn't going to talk myself down to fit her idea of what I should be. "I'm not going to fight you on this," I said, looking at her calm. "If that's how you see me, then it is what it is." Her face twisted, not with regret, but with something else. Like she was mad I wasn't giving her the reaction she wanted. I didn't care. I felt my spine straighten, the way it always did when I'd had enough. The way it did when I realized I'd been doing everything for the wrong reasons. This wasn't about love anymore. Not for her. It was about dignity. My dignity. She crossed her arms, looking at me like she was waiting for something else, something bigger. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I was done. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just clear. Clear that I didn't need her to define me anymore. I could stand on my own. I woke up before the sun the next morning. The house was still quiet, the way it always is when the weight of things shifts. I sat at the desk in the den, the only light coming from the desk lamp. My hands were steady as I opened a new document, typed a title, Terms of Resolution. I didn't waste time. I wrote it clearly, step by step. Path A, full reset. Respect restored visibly. No passive-aggressive comments. No backhanded compliments. Couples counseling scheduled within 7 days. Shared calendar for all major events. No more comparisons to other men or couples. Path B, clean separation. Bank accounts split with clear responsibility for all joint expenses. List of shared responsibilities, from household chores to long-term commitments. Move-out plan, detailing dates, logistics, and possession of property. I kept the tone neutral. No threats, just structure. This wasn't about punishment. It was about clarity. I printed it, dated it, and set the deadline. 72 hours. I didn't have to wait long. She came into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, her hair still messy from sleep. She didn't look at me, just moved toward the coffee machine like it was any other morning. But I knew she felt it, the change in the air. I slid the printed plan across the table right in front of her. It was a simple gesture. Direct. Uncomplicated. These are the terms, I said, my voice even. Choose by action, not talk. She glanced down at the paper, then back at me. Her brow furrowed, but she didn't say anything. She didn't have to. She could read the words as well as I could. I waited. I wasn't in a rush. She could either meet me where I was or walk away. It was her choice. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, she scoffed softly, as if she couldn't believe I was actually doing this. You really think you can just lay it all out like this? She asked, crossing her arms. Yeah, I said, meeting her eyes steady. I do. She glanced at the paper again, flipping through it like she was searching for some loophole or escape. But there was none. You're serious about this? Dead serious. She looked back at me, her lips pressed tight, eyes scanning my face. I didn't flinch. I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't looking for a fight. I wasn't asking for an explanation. I was giving her the chance to act, either step up or let it end. I didn't care which she chose. The line had been drawn. The first day, she tried everything. It was like watching a play I'd seen 100 times, except this time I wasn't playing along. She started small. The light touches, her hand grazing my arm as she passed through the kitchen, her fingers lingering a little longer than they should have. I didn't react. I just kept doing what I was doing, like it didn't register. Then came the photos. She sent me one. An old picture of us, our first trip together, us laughing in the sun. The kind of photo that used to make me nostalgic, make me want to get pulled back in. But this time, I just stared at it for a second, then set the phone down, face up, and walked away. I could hear her from the other room. Remember this? We were so happy, right? Her voice was softer, trying to lure me back into something we both knew wasn't there anymore. I didn't look back. Did you book the appointment? I asked from the hallway. She came into the living room, and for a moment, I thought she might press further, but she didn't. She only watched me, like she was waiting to see how long I'd hold out. She tried the soft voice next. We've been through so much, though. You don't think this is worth fighting for? I didn't look up, kept pulling my boots on, tying the laces slow, deliberate. Did you book the appointment? She stood there a second, then took a deep breath, like she was going to try something else. She didn't. She just nodded. That night, I slept in the guest room. I kept my habits tight. No late-night conversations. No slipping into old patterns. I wasn't angry, just clear. I needed distance to remind myself why I was doing this. The timer sat on the desk in the guest room, loud in the silence, counting down with every passing hour. She knew I was watching it. She could see the numbers ticking down. I wasn't going to let this turn into some emotional roller coaster. No chaos. No mind games. At breakfast the next morning, she tried again. A different approach, guilt, maybe. "Is this how you want it to end?" she asked, eyes a little too wide, like she wasn't sure how to feel. I didn't flinch. "Did you book the appointment?" She stared at me, hands around her mug, then set it down, her fingers tapping nervously on the edge. "You're not even going to say anything about it?" she asked, like it was a trick question. "I thought you'd be upset or at least angry." I set my fork down, still calm. "I'm not angry. I'm holding a boundary." Her face tightened, lips pressed together. "So this is punishment, then?" I shook my head slowly. "No, it's a boundary." She frowned like she didn't get the difference, but I wasn't going to explain it again. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" she asked, frustration creeping into her voice. "You're making it so damn hard to fix things." I didn't raise my voice. "Did you book the appointment?" She bit her lip, then let out a sigh, like the air had gone out of her. It wasn't a real sigh of relief, just resignation. The day wore on, and the clock kept ticking. I didn't let myself waver. Not once. Each hour was a test, and I passed it without raising my voice, without moving an inch from where I stood. She tried everything to tilt me off course, but I wouldn't bend. No pleading, no nostalgia, no guilt. I wasn't going to be manipulated into a smaller version of myself. By the time the day ended, I could see it in her eyes. She was tired of trying. Tired of looking for a way back when she knew she had burned the bridge. The next day, she turned up the volume. It wasn't guilt anymore or nostalgia. It was something different. Anger dressed up as logic, manipulation dressed up as compromise. I noticed her phone was out more often. She posted a picture. Sunrise, soft light spilling over the horizon. All the usual feel-good bullshit. The caption said, "Doing the work. One step at a time." She didn't leave it up for long. Maybe an hour, maybe less. Then it was gone. But I saw it. Later that morning, one of her friends texted me, out of the blue. Said something like, "You didn't deserve her outburst last night. You should know that." I stared at the message for a while. I knew what they were trying to do. A little sympathy, a little nudge to make me question myself. But I didn't need validation from anyone but myself. I let the message sit there, unread for the rest of the day. She tried again. This time, her voice was different. Less soft, but still manipulative. "I'm sorry if I made you feel small. That wasn't my intention. If you took it the wrong way..." She trailed off, her voice almost like a sigh, like she was expecting me to let it go, expecting me to accept a half-assed apology. I didn't bite. "That's not ownership," I said, looking right at her. "You can't say, 'I didn't mean to hurt you,' and expect me to pretend we're healing from this. Not without saying, 'I disrespected you.'" She paused, like my words hit her in a way she didn't expect. For a second, I could see the mask crack, just slightly, before she closed it up again. "I didn't disres. You did." I cut her off. "And I won't pretend it didn't happen. I won't pretend like we can fix this without acknowledging it." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She stared at me for a moment, then turned away, running a hand through her hair. I didn't follow her. I didn't beg her to explain. I didn't chase. I was done with chasing. While she worked her angle, I worked mine. I made calls, bank processes first, split the accounts, went over the joint credit card bills, the mortgage, all of it. I started moving money into separate accounts, planning everything as though Path B was already the only option. I took a break to tour a couple of apartments, places with space for one. No more waiting for the weekend to see if she would come around. I knew what I was doing, and I wasn't backing down. When I came back, I went grocery shopping. Just for myself. Enough to make dinner for one. A few weeks ago, I would have bought double. Enough to cover the two of us. But now, I stood in the store, picking out meals I liked, the ones I didn't have to share. I thought about how much easier it would be to just cook for me. To have quiet, uninterrupted meals. Each task, Banking, apartment hunting, grocery shopping felt like a declaration. I meant what I wrote. I had made my choice, and I wasn't going to keep pretending like the choice hadn't already been made for me. She didn't try to bargain anymore. At least not with words. I think she knew I wasn't listening to her anymore. The timer on my phone ticked away, loud in the silence between us. And with every second that passed, the distance between us stretched further. Her father called in the middle of the afternoon. I knew what it was about before I even picked up. "Is she serious about this?" he asked, his voice rough but measured, like he was trying to figure out if he was dealing with a phase or something bigger. "If she means it, is there a way back?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, it's on the page." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathe, feel the weight of his silence. "All right," he said finally. "All right, let me know if you need anything." I didn't respond. He hung up. The line went quiet. I stayed calm, but the air between her and me shifted after that. She wasn't making big moves anymore. No grand gestures, no attempts to provoke a reaction, no more soft apologies. She just went quiet, as if she finally saw the line I'd drawn and knew there was no way around it. It was strange how much quieter the house felt, like someone had finally looked into the mirror and seen what was there. That night, she tried one last time. She stood by the desk where I'd left the printed terms from the morning we'd talked, her finger tracing the edge of the paper, like she was trying to soften the ink, willing it to change. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't need to. She finally spoke, voice lower now, softer, almost a whisper. "You sure about this? Is this really what you want?" I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on the paper in front of me, but I could feel her presence, just behind me. "Did you book the appointment?" I asked, the question as simple as it had been for days now. She paused, then glanced at the paper, her eyes lingering. I could see the hesitation in her movements, the way her hand hovered above it, like she was thinking of saying something else, trying to find the right words. But there was nothing left to say. "Did you book the appointment?" I asked again, sharper this time, the calm in my voice underscored by the finality of the question. She didn't answer. She stood there, fingers still pressing gently on the page, but she didn't do what I'd asked. I stood up slowly. The silence between us stretched. I didn't feel anger, not anymore, just clarity. I nodded, almost to myself. "I'm going to bed." I slept in peace that night, the timer ticking down in the background, still counting the hours, still marking the distance. She didn't deliver on her word, and I wasn't about to settle for half measures. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear. Tomorrow would come just like the day after that, and I would still be on the path I'd set. The timer buzzed at 9 a.m. sharp, cutting through the stillness of the morning like a warning shot. I turned it off and felt the weight of it settle on my chest for just a moment. Then I moved. First, I called the bank. Split the accounts. No drama, just clean, efficient decisions. I didn't need to explain anything. No guilt, no justification. The numbers did the talking. Next, I sent the green light to the lawyer. Not a threat, just an instruction. It was simple. You follow through or you don't. Then came the movers. I scheduled them for the weekend. No surprise there. I'd already picked the day. I wasn't waiting around for anything anymore. I opened up a spreadsheet, furniture, belongings, what was going where. A list of what needed to be sold, what I'd take, what could stay. I didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. It was methodical. The subscriptions went next. I logged into everything from Netflix to the gym membership and canceled them. The ties were severed. One by one, the shared things started to fade away. She came into the kitchen as I was making my coffee. I didn't look at her at first. Just stirred, took a sip, and let the silence stretch out. "Did you book the appointment?" I asked, not looking up. Her voice was quieter now. "I was thinking maybe we could still do the counseling. I can make the call. It doesn't change anything, but..." I cut her off, the words falling out without thinking. "I'll attend. For closure, not for repair." She stood there, her lips pressed tight, the way they always did when she was trying to control herself. She didn't say anything for a few moments, but I could tell she was weighing her options, trying to figure out the angle. I wasn't interested in the angle anymore. We did the walkthrough later that day. She had a legal pad with her, making notes about who would take what. It was calm. Too calm, but necessary. It felt more like two people discussing logistics than a couple ending things. I marked off what I'd take. Clothes, a couple of books, a few sentimental things. She took the couch, the coffee table, some of the kitchen appliances. There was no fighting, no drama. We went room by room, checking things off. Her voice never rose. Her eyes never flinched. She wasn't trying to take control anymore. She knew the game had shifted, and the rules were mine now. At one point, she paused by the bookshelf. "This is it, then?" she said, more to herself than to me. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. I didn't answer. I just kept writing on the pad, making sure the details were clear. When we finished, I looked at her. "It's done." She didn't try to argue. She didn't try to change anything. Her shoulders slumped slightly, but she said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The shift was real. Too late for apologies, too late for last-minute bargains. She didn't ask if we could try again, and I didn't offer anything to suggest we could. I knew what I had to do, and I was already doing it. Her father called again the next day. This time, there was no attempt to soften the blow, no circling around the subject like he was tiptoeing through the conversation. He just said it. "If she means it, then it's done," he said. "You can't go back after this." I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. He was right. "All right," he added after a pause. "Just make sure you're doing what's right for you. I'll be here if you need me." I didn't thank him. It wasn't necessary. I had what I needed. Over the next 2 days, the tension between her and me shifted. Her friends started to fade out. Some of them had been hovering, sending vague messages, trying to reassure her, trying to convince me I was wrong. But it started to die down. One of them even apologized, texting me to say I didn't deserve her outburst. Another unfollowed the group chat entirely. I kept my head down, focused on the steps I needed to take. At lunch on the second day, I signed the lease on a new apartment. It felt final, like the weight of a door closing behind me. I moved my emergency contact to my mom. It was a small thing, but it felt like reclaiming space, making sure I was rooted in the new life I was building. I started building routines that didn't include her. Gym in the mornings, quiet nights. I found myself smiling at small things, like the sound of my own footsteps in the apartment, the freedom to take up space without wondering if she was watching. Later that evening, her text came. "I disrespected you. I'm sorry." It was simple. Not enough, but enough for me to acknowledge. I stared at it for a minute, my thumb hovering over the keys. I didn't want to drag this out, so I typed back, short and to the point. "Thank you. I'll attend one session." I didn't say more. She knew where I stood, and I wasn't about to make excuses for her actions or pretend like one sentence would change anything. But the truth was, the path had already been set. Path B was in motion. She could apologize all she wanted, but ownership didn't erase the consequences. It didn't undo what had been done. I wasn't looking for reconciliation. I was looking for closure, and I'd already made peace with that. The timer on my phone kept counting down, but I was already ahead of it. The line had been crossed, and there was no walking it back. We went to the counselor the next afternoon. The office was sterile, too clean, too quiet. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, the hum of the air conditioning. She sat beside me, her hands folded in her lap, like she was waiting for something to happen. The counselor started with the usual pleasantries, then got to the point. "We need to go over responsibilities, what gets closed, what stays open, and how we'll handle the next steps." I nodded. "Fine." We started with the accounts. She took the lead on that, listing which ones were mine and which were hers. We split everything cleanly: savings, credit cards, the mortgage. The counselor kept us on track, but the more we went through, the less I felt like I was in the same room with the person I'd once known. The counselor asked the question, the one I'd known was coming. "Do either of you want to discuss reconciliation?" I answered first, without hesitation. "No." I could feel her glance at me, but I didn't care. She knew it was coming. I don't need fireworks, I continued. I need structure. I don't need to fix things or pretend like we're going to start over. We're not. The counselor nodded, acknowledging my response. She didn't press further, which I appreciated. We moved on. The timeline was set, each task broken down, each responsibility clear. I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders as each decision was finalized. By the time we were done, the last document was signed. A paralegal handed us the papers, no fanfare, no speeches. Just clean, methodical steps. We walked out of the office together, side by side but miles apart. Outside, the sun was bright, too bright for a moment like this, but there it was. She stopped before I got in the truck, her voice softer than it had been in weeks. Can we grab coffee? I didn't hesitate. I have work. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't spiteful. It was just clear. She nodded, didn't press further, and I climbed into the truck. The engine turned over like it always had, the same rattle, the same hum. It was still my truck, still practical, still mine. I drove back in silence, the road stretching out in front of me. No distractions, just the quiet rhythm of the drive, my hands steady on the wheel, the future wide open in front of me. It was enough. I was enough. My days found a rhythm quickly after that. The quiet was different now, peaceful, steady. I woke up early for the gym, the routine sharpening me in ways I hadn't realized I'd needed. I set my Saturdays for chores, the kind of tasks that gave me something tangible to hold on to. I'd get groceries, clean the house, organize the garage. Things felt more mine in a way they never had before. I called my mom once a week, just to check in, to hear her voice, to remember the part of my life that hadn't been disrupted by any of this. Felt simple. Felt good. I hung one photo on the wall, a picture of my granddad holding a level. That was the only portrait I needed. He'd been a man who built things, who stood steady no matter what. He'd known when to keep his mouth shut and when to put his foot down. I looked at that picture every day and remembered what it meant to be grounded. I noticed the small things. How I didn't check my phone for validation anymore. How I laughed without wondering if it was too loud or if I'd annoyed someone. I'd stopped second-guessing myself. The air in my lungs felt fuller now, like I could breathe deeper without someone else's opinions weighing me down. Then, she texted me again. This time it was short. I'm learning not to confuse should with love. I stared at the message for a few moments. I could feel the weight of what she was trying to say. I could hear the sincerity in her words, but I didn't feel the need to respond with anything more than a simple truth. I typed back, I wish you well, and that was it. I didn't reopen the door. I didn't offer anything more. The chapter was closed. The house stayed quiet, just as it had been since I started reclaiming the space. There was a calmness in the simplicity of it all. My life was mine again, without apology, without explanation. My self-respect stood tall, not needing any audience. I hadn't won a breakup, I realized. I just reclaimed a floor I wouldn't step off again. I wasn't looking to prove anything to anyone, least of all to her. What I had was enough. What I was enough.